How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to TheBlueShifting, and welcome back to ReWrite. And it's gonna sound really weird, but for some reason it just caught my eye, even though normally it appears every time I pick up the game, every time it gets booted up. But it has a text box at the very beginning that says, this game is in no way related to real-life events or people. And it's like, I understand that there's a legal reason you have to say that, but it's one of those bizarre situations where you're like, you look at what we're doing right now, what's been happening with the characters so far, and it's like, yeah, I'm not sure we need to be reminded, but again, I'm sure it's just checking boxes that are necessary. And it's crazy. So we had a kind of a stare into the abyss type of situation with Kotarou, where he traveled abroad, being part of a mercenary group to try and increase his skill. And technically that actually happened because the realization of like what it means to power yourself up is to sacrifice your own life force, take years off of your life. Like he was coming to terms with that. It's the same thing with summoners. But the reason why people with superpowers, superhumans, are like that, remember, it's all about like their ego, the self-determinism. Essentially, the reason why ego is so important is because only somebody who truly believes that they are doing the right thing, that having powers will make a change and make it worthwhile, would be capable of willingly sacrificing their life force in order to gain power. And that's the thing, is Kotarou, up until this point, he'd pushed himself a little bit here or there, but knew deep down it was a problem. And now he's embraced it. He said, oh, if sacrificing my future life lets me save these people, these kids, I'm gonna do it. Because screw future me, I need to be here now. And so he expanded himself and became a lot more powerful. So it's kind of a cool thing. Like, it's always been hinting at this and kind of talking about it, but it really just drove it home in very plain words, which is just refreshing to see. So I thought I'd talk about that as well. But anyway, so he saved some kids that were summoners. He also ended up saving individuals who were superpowered, and now he's made essentially what he calls a third faction, and someone perfectly summarized it well, saying that in the last episode, Kotarou has become Big Boss, which, yeah. So faction number 3 is entered the scene. I don't know if it has a name yet. Maybe the ReWrite, I don't know. Pardon me for the throat. I think I'm coming down with a cold, unfortunately, but not much I can do about that. It happens. It's just the nature of things and the weather changing, which I love. I'm so happy that fall's my favorite season. Absolutely, hands down. Heck, I even went to an orchard and we picked apples, fresh apples, Empire apples, which are some of the best apples I think I've ever had. It's probably like a decent apple that I'm also picking in an orchard, and like picking and immediately eating because it's ripe off the tree, and that does make a huge difference. But even so, it was just so good. And I even made a pie last night, apple pie, which is one of my favorite treats. It's funny because I normally prefer cake to pie. Pie's good, don't get me wrong. Cake, I just think is consistently fantastic, where pie can be hit or miss. But king over 80 cake is apple pie. And so being able to make it from scratch with fresh apples from an orchard, and it was beautiful. It's one of those weird little things I picked up recently, like the baking stuff, but it's such a joy, and it was really fun to put together. So anyway, enough about blabbing about that. I'm just living in awe of a world that is worth fighting for the survival of the world. And that's why Kotarou, I think, is on the right track. It's not Gaia or Guardian, both of which seem determined to tear everything apart in order to get what they achieve what they think is right, when it's pretty clear that there's got to be a third option. Kotarou's making it, so I'm excited to see where this goes from here, because we're heading back to Kazamatsuri. So yeah, let's see what Bond does this time. Oh man, is he gonna just start going by James Bond now that he's like a big boss boy? Oh man, I'll have to see. Anyway, let's jump in. As I head out of the station, the sight of nothing but Japanese people awes me. It's a shock to me. Everyone is so defenseless. Excuse me. Again, I don't know what's up with that. They don't even have a shred of caution that they'll be caught up in a terrorist attack. It's a stark reminder that Japan really is a peaceful country. For one, cars here almost never explode. There aren't any kids running up and firing blindly at me. Neither are there any suicide bombers blowing themselves up in crowded areas. Again, that's quite a perspective to have. And it's pretty real, too. I mean, anyone who served abroad, serving in the military, especially in a combat zone like that, that must be a pretty decent representation of what it's like to try and come back to a really peaceful homeland where it's like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, sure, bad things happen, but not that bad, not that consistently. And you're not watching, like, entire cities starving to death and fighting over scraps. Like, that's pretty cool. We're pretty lucky to live where we live. If we have access to internet and food and a shelter, and we're not constantly being under threat of bombs. Like, those of us who are still living in such times, we should really treasure that. A familiar car slowly inches up to me.
Tennouji, 見違えたな。
ご無沙汰しております。
相当揉まれたようだな。見ればわかる。
どうも。
Thank you? Like, I wouldn't say thank you if you're like, yes.
よく死なずに戻った。今度こそ、私の期待に応えてくれるな。
My chest tightens up for an instant. This time but...
はい。
It's like
引退されたんですか?
So he's saying he was disappointed in him. So does he know that he didn't turn the key over, that he was able to see it?
年始めにな。
騎士団は
解散ということになった。
So the Knights of the Green Sword have disbanded. They were officially known as the Bayoner Knights of the Green Sword. They had a long history dating back to the knightly orders from the Crusades. I was about to say, like the name, like Knights of the Green Sword, really makes me think of the Green Knight from the like, isn't that like the story, like the poems from the Arthurian legends, like Galahad and the Green Knight, I think it was, or. The organization changed drastically since then, but what hasn't changed is that it's still a group of superhumans who fight primarily in the shadows of history. So they decided to put an end to all that? Must have been quite the decision. Apparently, considering the members' ages and the many vacancies, that was the decision they reached. And now Esaka is working with the organization in order to raise and mentor the next generation.
指揮に徹するんですね。
それに近い。
それは残念でした。お疲れ様です。
いや、頃合いだった。今は趣味に割く時間もできて、なかなか良い。
Oh yeah, I'm sure you love that. It really doesn't seem like it bothers him. Rather, it's almost odd how refreshed he looks at this development.
皆も好きなことを始めている。
はい、いずれ。
Oh, I clicked for some reason, I'm sorry. So you kind of finished saying, with many of them in the city, you ought to pay them a visit.
当面、貴様には私の手伝いをしてもらいたい。
Here we go again.
了解です。最近の情勢はどうですか？自分は長く国を離れていたもので。
由々しき問題がいくつか発生している。
Ah. Esaka joins his hands together and makes a serious expression.
それは
あんこたこ焼きのまるちゃんが潰れた。
No. That truly is a crisis.
マジっすか？
This is the worst possible thing that could have happened.
チーズたい焼きの名店石丸屋も潰れた。
No!
英国堂のワッフルはスタッフが入れ替わって味が落ちた。
Go away. Kotarou, whoever voiced Kotarou in this, probably should go and become a voice for Link in one of the Zelda games. I mean, doesn't that just sound like a Link yell?
俺の好物が
サンジェリナのこんにゃくパンが。
嘘でしょ。
子供が丸飲みしたため喉に詰まって病院に運ばれる事件が起き、販売禁止になってしまった。
I understand there needing to be an inquiry, but they banned it because one child was like whose parent wasn't paying attention.
すまん、私の力不足で。
The world is truly in turmoil. It's as terrible as it could be.
じゃなくて仕事の方です。
ああ、そちらの方は沈静化している。双方大きな動きはない。
鍵については
特に報告は受けていない。
鍵って未だによくわからないんですが、放置しておいていいものなんでしょうか？
そのこともあって今のうちに貴様を呼び寄せることにした。強い力を持っている魔物だけにマーテルには悪用させたくない。
Okay. Is he talking about the key being the familiar?
鍵は潜伏期が過ぎると生まれた土地に戻る。この地で網を張っておくのが確実なのだよ。
Okay. So he saw the flower. That was the developing incarnation of the key. And then she kind of was born, which was the conflict that we saw because everyone knew that she'd been born. They were trying to grab her. But because Kotarou saved her, she then went on a pilgrimage, essentially probably wandering the world. And they're saying, all right, well, we haven't seen her. We're going to keep an eye out, though, because the chances are she's going to come back here. So we'll prepare for that.
だから人手がいる。
向こうではずっと足手まといでしたけど。
変わらないな、貴様。
すいません。多少はマシになってるとは思いますけど。
そうか。
Just stay the way you are. Just stay the way you are. It feels like that's what he's telling me. Though perhaps with a hint of resignation mixed in.
向こうでは甘シャリには不自由したはずだ。
Oh, I'm sure.
会社の売店で売られていたチップスとチョコバーは最悪でした。そんなものでも奪い合いだ。
そうだろう。用意してあるぞ。
His secretary brings a 3-tier tray of several exquisite-looking cakes atop it.
おかわりだ。
Esaka asks for yet another one of these trays, and at the speed of lightning even. The secretary pours us some black tea. I'm already drooling at the spread.
さあ、戦場の話を聞かせたまえ。
I was about to say, I was actually pondering between last episode and this, I almost wish I could see, a proper animation of, I keep wanting to say Luca, but it's not Luca. That's a show. Luis. Where Luis with his spear, you're standing in a field of flames, blowing up bombs with spear throws. It just sounds so cool. I love Japan's hotels. This is what a hotel should be like. This is what service should be like. As much water for drinking and baths as you'd like. Splendid. Since I can't go back to my actual house, I've been living in a hotel. I gaze out the windows into Kazamatsuri's cityscape. There's a few buildings I don't recognize that have been built.
Mm.
This feeling of nostalgia is drawing me in.
いないか。
That time. During the Kazamatsuri operation, I let the key escape. I checked the place where I let her hide, but she isn't there. Of course she isn't. I take the seat then and there.
いい思い出などないはずの街なのに。懐かしいんだ。
Yeah, it's funny because, so much stuff happens here. Both in futures that we've kind of evaded, but also, in the past, we also evaded a really, pivotal moment for him. So I would absolutely agree this place would be nostalgic. As I close my eyes, they sting so much it hurts. For no particular reason, feels like I want to cry. Even though I'm already old enough to drink alcohol.
鍵。大地より生まれる魔物の原型。
Jasmine and I look into the key and realize it is, Jasmine and I looked into the key and the reality of it is horrifying. The key has appeared several times over the course of history. It takes the form of a person once it's born and has no summoner controlling it. It has its own energy already within itself once it's born and it moves around on its own. In the 90s, an entire country in the Middle East vanished. The country was in the middle of a civil war. Weapons of mass destruction were suspected to have been used, but the truth was never fully known. With pressure from both Gaia and Guardian, huge sums of money were expended to create a cover-up. Consequently, all traces of it from mainstream literature have been erased from memory. Wouldn't it be absolutely insane if that actually happened? The truth of the matter involves the existence and disappearance of the key. After the key's born, there will come a time where it will cause great destruction around itself. The destruction will be from organic causes. Plants and animals, buildings, even the soil itself will be organically decomposed. The key itself will be born countless times. The reason why it takes on the form of a human is because it scrutinizes humans. The Earth periodically examines humankind, and then it brings about a merciless liquidation. During that incident, the key's power was severely weakened. The resulting destruction was nothing more than a fizzle. Then, what would complete destruction look like? I can see why Guardian is getting so serious about this, and also the reason why Gaia reveres her and tries to bring her in. At the time, Esaka didn't tell me everything. Considering how confidential the matter is, it's only natural he'd stay quiet about it. If he really did trust me, though, he should have given me just a bit more information.
まあ、それはいいんだ。俺が勝手に慕ってる。そういうことでいい。
I brushed the hair away from my face. I acted the same way with the key, with Jasmine and with the others. I can be a real pushover, I swear. I'll have to live with how I am, I suppose. But if something poses a danger, then I can't leave it be. It's actually interesting because, like, what is it that Kotarou keeps describing here as weakness? He keeps talking about how he's a pushover when it came to the kids with Jasmine and the other kids, when it came to the key. But I don't think it's that. It actually encapsulates what we see in, like, The Lord of the Rings from Bilbo and Frodo and even Sam. And what ended up being essentially what was the salvation of the world from Sauron, and that was pity. The ability to look at somebody and empathize and be like, I don't need to destroy this just because it's here. Even if I'm expected to, even if it would be perfectly justifiable. But you look at something or someone and you have that pity, and that I think pity sparks from hope. The hope that things don't have to stay the way they are, that they can get better, that there's something worth protecting even when it feels like that it's nothing but short of destruction. And that's what Kotarou is. He's the epitome of a heroic figure because he's willing to stand up to terror and horror and personal fear and still try to fight and try to make a difference. And he can stop and take pity, even if it means taking like incredible risk and sacrifice on his own part. So, yeah, I think Kotarou is almost like the Frodo or Sam of this story, where his motivations are almost so genuine that he will follow through on these decisions, even if there's no real, like, marked reason to. Like he detriments himself by making these choices, but he's still going to stand with it because the motivating feeling behind it is empathy, and he's never ever regretted that. And that's pretty remarkable when you think of it. The key. It's an emissary sent by the Earth to humanity. I sense something again. It's much stronger than when I was in the hotel. It's as if my very skin is stirring, like the words are being turned into electromagnetic pulses and fired at me. She's in the forest. She's calling me. So she's here. Holy fetch, what? From a hill, she gazes at the city. She looks exactly the same as before. A non-human girl whose very existence bestows a strong sense of inspiration from all who look on her. The girl of heavenly beauty with the floating film around her looks back at me. Her eyes look straight down on me. Okay, but how are we here? I didn't think this was a real place. Like, I understand that at the time the moon, what we thought was the moon, which was too big, was just the Earth. But here we are in the exact same place. Is this moon, like, smaller, or is it just the same background? Those eyes are tranquil, like an undisturbed lake. I noticed something that wasn't there before. There's definitely a sense of intelligence that sprouted within her.
Kagi dana.
Kagari.
Oh, fetch! She said it! And look at that. She, like, recognizes us. I'm sure she remembers us from way back. She talked. My heart trembles at that very fact.
Kagari, anta no naka.
名ではありませんが、そう呼ぶしかないでしょう。
Alright, so someone explained this to me, that Kagari in Japanese, like, means something. Oh gosh, I wish I could remember. It's been a while since that comment, but it's essentially meaning like a key that unlocks or something like a phrase like that. She can even hold a conversation. I can actually come to an understanding with her. That's something that's really different. I wonder if his change really brought this about, like interacting with her, protecting her, the change he made in the pattern. because she's already more talkative than she ever was before. Well then, that's something I must ask her before anything else.
カガリとは人を滅ぼすものか。
時が来て、人が資格を備えなければ、そうもなりましょう。
That's so many words from her, holy cow.
資格？
天王寺小太郎、星の記憶は、現状では悲しみに満ち溢れています。
Oh. Remember how she always would said, like when she was like traveling around, she said she's looking for happy memories. She's looking for happy memories of the earth, not happy memories of people.
このままでは、滅びを待つばかり。
滅びって。
この星すべてを覆い尽くす。
すべてって地球全体？
仮にそうなっても、活力が残されているうちは、問題はなかった。
Oh. Sad Kagari. That's one thing I don't like about the new format with like Kotarou speaking and everything with the text right here, is that with the text being limited to the bottom of the screen, I feel like we got to enjoy the visuals a bit more. But because of this, and they put like the dark film across it, like I have to step us away just to look at the art.
滅びの後には再進化が。
Re-evolution.
けれど、今の地球にはその活力さえ乏しい。
So what she's done in the past, the Earth was able to kind of restart. So that's the mass extinction events and then like bringing it back. But she's saying like at this point, there's not much left.
そうカガリは判断しました。
待て待て。滅びの後には再生？何？星全体が滅びた後、何が再生する？
命のすべて。
再生とは言うが。
再進化と呼ぶ方がわかりやすいはずです。
I think she said more in the past like 5 minutes than probably she said in the rest of the story up until this point.
命はゼロからやり直しを行う。再び知性を宿すまで、可能な限り一度起きた出来事をなぞって、規模の大小を問わず、何度も起こってきたことです。
Okay.
細かいことは置くとして、つまりあんたは俺たちに警告したいのか？
カガリは星の化身のようなもの。
Oh. So you kind of are the planet.
意志を持たない星に代わり、人に混じり、人を学び、
Okay.
判断を下す。星の活力は、資源浪費の進行とともに、枯渇しようとしています。
And that's probably, and the thing is, like, that echoes true. I heard someone talking about that, just saying, like, so, okay, theoretically, we do have a lot more oil reserves to tap into, but the thing is that they are a limited resource. Like, our whole civilization currently is so dependent on, like, oil, not just for fueling our cars, like, making plastic, a lot of, like, the stuff that we use for making concrete, our ability to travel and make energy, being able to go out into space. If our civilization does burn itself to the ground, there's a good chance that there might not, that we could eventually hit a point where, like, civilization couldn't rebuild back all the way that we have now because there just wouldn't be enough oil reserves. They'd have to work out other things, but they might be trapped. Like, we might lose the ability to go into space, because currently, I don't think we know of any, like, propulsion methods that would actually be, like, workable that wouldn't rely on fossil fuels in some form or another. Now, you could argue eventually you could get hydrogen, but, like, that's dangerous. And do we even have the means of harvesting hydrogen properly or actually using it right now? It's more a theoretical type of fuel. Like, I mean, it's definitely a type of fuel, but using it to be able to achieve things like flight and space flight and orbit, I don't know. That's stuff I don't know much about at this point. And so, yeah, like, there's very real the idea that if we had a massive war and it kind of reset us back to, like, I don't know, the Middle Ages or the Stone Ages, and then humanity, like, still managed to survive, come through, and come out the other side and kind of rebuild back, they just might not have the ability to get to where we are today. Like, they just might not have the means, which is terrifying.
再進化には膨大な活力が必要。今の状態では滅びは起きても再進化が起こらない。
So this is endgame. If destruction happens here, it's over.
その場合は。
星は果てましょう。
それは、大事だけどな。大事すぎる。本当にあんたの言うことは真実なのか、判断のしようもない。あんたが鍵であることは、俺の直感が事実だと告げているが、なぜ俺に言う？
かがりと天王寺小太郎の間には縁ができていますから。
Ah, interesting. Okay.
他の者にかがりの姿は見えない。
So last time, the connection between Kagari and Kotaru was because her power was what healed him when Kotaru kind of made the supplication that he be saved from his injury. But now, that never happened, but they're bonded still. They're bonded because of the connection that he forged in the kind of cognitive trial space that was the realm here that this reminds me of. That connection transcends time. That's really cool. And heck, it might even be the odd foundation of why they were able to bond and why she was willing to sacrifice life energy to him back then, was because maybe deep down inside her there were echoes of that relationship that was to be and had always been outside of the time spectrum. Interesting.
縁とは、あんたを争奪戦から助けたことか。
発芽の段階でも接触を。
Yeah, in the flower form too. There was that too.
あれこそ我が最初の学び。あなたの行動は私有間において求愛ないしは忠誠の表明だと考えられます。
You know, if there's anybody who could court the planet and actually make it work, it'd be Kotaru. He wouldn't be able to intentionally do it, but he could do it by accident.
よって天王寺小太郎はかがりに対し欲情していると判断でき。
待て待て待て。
Yeah. Especially because she has the appearance of young, and at this point we know he's like 18 plus because he said he could legally drink, and I think drinking in age in Japan is supposed to be 18. I don't know that 100%, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So he's 18, 19, 20. She appears to be like 15. They'd be like, oh, hang on.
天王寺小太郎の欲情の度合いは極めて強いものと推測され。
What the?
おい、繰り返すなよ。その滅びってやつ、それはあんたがやるんだろ？やめてもらうことはできないのか？
Could you just maybe not?
滅びはかがりの意志によって起こるのではありません。
Okay. So how does it work then? Because you're part of the process.
悲しみの記憶がかがりに集められたとき、生理的に発生するもの。
So she travels the world looking for the world's memories, which are likely memories of what humanity has been doing throughout like the history, especially since the last time she was manifested. And if she only gets like brief-filled memories, then it just builds up in her and she can't help herself. She has to destroy.
止める方法はただ一つ。良い記憶を。
良い記憶とはどういう？
自分ではわからないんです。良いと思えた時が良い記憶としか言えない。
Okay. So she needs good memories. She doesn't know what they are, but she would recognize it as soon as she saw it.
漠然としてるな。俺にその役目を担えっていうことか。
Kagari breaks her gaze away from me, looking out into the city from the hill. My heart pounds. With each beat, a sweetness spreads within my chest. I'm still not sure exactly what emotion this is, but it's not bad. Resonating with the key, I think hard about that. That would be well and truly betraying the organization. What if I told the organization what the key told me? I could work as her interpreter.
危ないだろうな。
Yeah, and I think it wouldn't work because even if Esaka would listen to you, I imagine majority of Guardian would literally just not care. They aren't a human organization, a humane organization, and besides, they're only ever concerned with flaunting and maintaining their power. Kagari is like a walking medal of honor. It would be like dangling bait right in front of a beast's nose.
言葉はどこで？わずか数年でやけに達者じゃないか。
この国を旅し、得ました。
Good.
言葉を得ると同時に、世界が助からない一線を越えつつあることが、かがりのうちで理解されました。
I don't like that.
しもべが必要です。
しもべ？
ホモサピエンスに働きかけるために、ホモサピエンスの個体が必要。 良い記憶が蓄えられれば、星の滅びは起こらない。
Okay. So maybe she's banking on him potentially being able to help her find something of interest. Okay. I like that. That's an interesting perspective on that.
我が手段として助力を要請したい。手伝いの代価としてあなたの性欲に応じてもいい。
Alright. Stop talking about that, please. We're gonna get arrested.
おい、言葉を微妙に変えていくなよ。
I feel like I'm being defamed here.
何してくれんの？胸揉ましてくれるとか。
この星を救ってくれるなら、最悪、生殖行為に応じてもいいと考えています。
What is happening?
行くところまで行っていいのか。別にそんなんじゃ、俺そんなんじゃないけどさ。
Kotarou, you... Oh my gosh.
って待って、最悪って言ったか今。
You're like, wait a second.
さらに、天王寺小太郎の名を後世まで長く語り継ぎましょう。
Okay.
星を救い、その褒美として、かがりの胸をもみし者と。
You know what? You know what? That's oddly acceptable. Like, it's weird, and I'd rather not have that last part in it. But frankly, if saving the planet meant I was creepy, it might be a line I'd be willing to cross. But again, ugh. God, and it's always weird too, because she's an avatar of the planet. It's like, God, that's gotta be very weird. I don't know. Whew, this is something.
匿名希望だ。
それならそれで。
一旦そういう話はやめよ
う。We're not supposed to be talking like taking this in a lewd direction. Saving the planet. Should I help her or not? I mean, yeah. Even if I could choose this, what a stupid thing. I mean, it is a choice, but seriously, of course we will.
手伝ってもいい。
確かですね。
俺は独り者だ。どんなイデオロギーにも心を捧げてない。
It's so weird seeing her expressing emotion so clearly. That's so cool. I wonder if that really is it. Like his interaction with her during the computational stages literally brought this about.
この停滞をどうにかできるというなら見てみたい気もするしな。
のんきなことを一刻の猶予もない状況で。
どのくらい切羽詰まってるんだ。
最新化が不可能になる一線を過ぎました。何としても良い記憶を探し、最新化の始まりを止める必要があります。
So at this point, it's like if we can't even accomplish it, so we have to avoid the automatic trigger.
次に最新化が起こってしまったら、今あるものもすべて崩壊するだけでなく、新たなものさえ生まれなくなる。
良い記憶というのが何か、どうやって調べる？
それを断定するには、まだかがりの人間理解は足りていません。
Okay.
ただ、悲しい記憶を作る原因の一つに、ホモサピエンス同士の闘争があると感じました。
Well, could we show how there are a lot of Homo sapiens that do work together and, like, support each other? We have a lot of good people on the planet. Yeah, a lot of bad things happen. They certainly are eye-catching, but I feel like the majority of people are good.
戦争や国家間紛争ってとこだな。
This isn't something I could do anything about as an individual.
闘争には、いくつもの形があるはず。個別に当たるほかないでしょう。
そうは言うけどな。
Will we even find good memories just by stopping some random fights here or there?
人の目線で、最も大きな争いとは。
That's a good question. I mean, he's probably going to have an answer. And if you agree with that, it'd be cool to hear that. But at the same time, I almost want to say, like, right now, before we get much further, like, it'd almost be interesting if you, like, were to, like, stop and, like, write down what your answer is to this question. Because from a human's perspective, so you as a human, what is the greatest conflict? The greatest conflict. Because that's such a philosophical, like, discussion to be made. And I could think of a few, like, immediate things that come to mind, but ultimately, I think that the greatest conflict is fear. I think it's the foundation of all human conflict. Like, a good example is resources. From time immemorial, people have fought over food and water because they're terrified of starving to death or their families starving to death. There have been wars in the name of God. They're born out of a fear of losing what hope they have for an afterlife. There have been wars in the name of ideologies who are terrified that they're going to lose the rights and privileges that they hold to. There are people who stifle revolution out of fear that a revolution will remove them from a state of stability. The rich and the powerful and the elite and the royal have instigated many wars, fearing that others of similar power level or will attempt to usurp them, or that the people beneath them will recognize that they don't need them and will try and depose them. I think fear, which is in small doses, helps keep us alive, but can be used and weaponized by our fears are weaponized and can be used by us to justify terrible things. So from a human's perspective, the greatest conflict is the conflict we each wrestle with, the fear that our lives are filled with. Maybe a war between the great powers? No. It would be the conflict between Gaia and Guardian splitting the world in two.
いや、しかしな、止めるとなると。
Kazamatsuri City and Gaia's Holy Land. The Martel Group is the largest faction of Gaia's supporters. Perhaps it's not impossible? But what do I do with Guardian? Those sorts of questions suddenly pop into my mind. It would be dangerous for either one of the two major factions to survive. It would be impossible for me to attack them using force. TP Corp is just one of the companies they own. Even if I take that down, they can easily fill the hole. It's a far-reaching organization. Does it not have an Achilles heel somewhere? Its secrecy? I gasp. Perhaps it might not be impossible. If I can stay covert, remaining a parasite to the organization, if I can remain a secretive traitor, then the only problem is how I feel. I think about the place where I belong. I've been in contact with both, but I belong to neither. I still stand on the borderline, not a part of either side. That's why I was chosen. That's why someone like me happened to form a connection with the key and why I'm here now. Is it just a coincidence? Can a coincidence like this really happen? Never brought the idea out to Destiny, but I think I can believe this. It does look like I'm the only one up for the job. I'm the only one who's been given this choice. That's what it means to be someone. Not to be somewhere, but be someone. I turn to face Kagari.
あんたと俺で星の死
もとよりそれが願いです。
My betrayal grows even thicker. It looks like my life's gonna get even more painful from now on. And yet, it's on a path that I feel the light of hope shines. Just like the bonfire. No one knows what the future holds, we're all walking paths in darkness. But on my path alone, there is a light at the end. In this situation where I have to make a choice, an instinctive spark guides me. That's what it feels like. I clutch my chest. It throbs hot and sweet. I am inexplicably drawn to the supernatural existence that is Kagari. Ooh. I start to get in contact with the Martel group. I complete the procedures to join. For now, I join the meetings that are open to the public. Anyone can just hop in. They often give lectures on popular science topics as well, so no one suspects anything. Then I make sure I approach the person in charge, talking to him all friendly-like. After that, I make sure to attend every meeting without fail. That alone should be enough to make this seem like a promising candidate. And in fact, Martel seems to have taken a liking to how assertive I was being. All that's left for me is to climb the ranks. Even without the key, the familiars are more active around the time of the Harvest Festival. A little show of force is necessary to prove that the organization is still active and running. To that end, some kind of operation, large or small, is generally planned. It's only April, still quite some time before then. For the meantime, I've been assigned to the patrol group. Much as I love Japanese-style hotels, it's getting pretty inconvenient to stay in them all the time. With that, I rent a single room under Kazamatsuri bond, my Kazamatsuri bond alias. Because I'm renting the room with Esaka as my guarantor, I can't do anything too crazy. I prepared 2 other safe houses under different aliases. They'll come in handy for if the time ever comes. I can't bring firearms in easily, but I gather as much other equipment as possible. Whenever I have free time, I go out jogging. Running 40 or 50 kilometers at an average person speed isn't going to build up my stamina, but it will at least keep me from getting rusty. Buildings that stand out, travel routes, power lines, drainage. I hammer that knowledge from the terrain into my brain. The streets far away from my own home feel more emotional than a terrible foreign country. I'd never developed an appreciation for the scenery in Japan, but for the sights of Kazamatsuri. But now they truly look deep, rich, and meaningful. That's cool. Perspective. Perspective is everything. I spot a building that wasn't there 4 years ago.
マヤ文明の神殿みたいだな。
One of Kazamatsuri's highlights is the high-rise buildings are decorated with greenery over all the walls. Except for the field of grass, the vast expansive lot is completely bare. There isn't a place to hide. It will probably be tough sneaking in even at night.
財団法人風祭り総合文化ホール。
After looking into it, I found out this place was built with funding from Martel. It was supposed to be open to the public, but all those plans were shelved after they discovered structural defects and a bunch of other problems. Because the city's so well off, it's been simply abandoned. If it wasn't, there would have been uproar over the scandal. Still, the building itself looks complete, and there are even signs of use. The gate is tightly locked. There are even guards posted at all times.
外野主義活動のために用意させた建物じゃないだろうな。
They must have. Which they did. He's clever. He's figuring this stuff out. I was able to become a full-time researcher for Martel. If you regularly participate in meetings, you're considered a student. Once you officially join the activities, you become a researcher. I haven't been able to actually become an actual Gaian just yet. So yeah, like, it's funny that they will give the title researcher to just somebody who's willing to participate and probably donate money. Like, that's sad. That's such a that's a tier list utilizing like the name researcher to kind of appeal to the psychology of people who want to be involved in science but can't actually do so because they're not scientists. That's just gross. I'm merely at the starting line. If I want to get to their secrets, I'll have to show even more of my potential. My potential to be a Gaian. To be a Gaian is to demonstrate one's pessimism. Living in this world is difficult. Living is painful. Summoners tend to be like that. They have to show it in some way. Is he going to become a summoner too? Could he become both? Because they said that's impossible, but he kind of was able to do it before. So, is that what he's going to be able to achieve this time? Is actually like enough to get accepted? Deep in the deserted forest. There, she's made a small boat for herself. I suppose someone born from nature would feel most at ease surrounded by nature.
Kagari, いるか?
待ちわびました。
Yep, from the canopy of trees above, Kagari descends, supported by her ribbons.
なんつう登場。
状況がまるで動いていません。今まで何をしていました？
This is gonna take time, Kagari.
その報告をしに来たんだ。
I tell her everything that's happened.
大きな動きはないが、仕込みはうまくいってる。今のところ、まず順調と言っていいはずだ。何しろ大事なんでな。そう簡単にはいかない。
いつになったら闘争は解消されると。
I don't know.
なんとも言えない。数年以内に対局に迫れるかどうか。
愚かなホモサピエンス。
Hey, if you have better ideas, I'd love to hear them.
うつけと言いました。
I'm speechless because of how directly she just insulted me.
時間がないことはすでに説明したはず。なぜ悠長に構えるんです？
聞いたけど、そんな一瞬で争いをなくすことなんてできないだろう。
それをやらねば、星も人も破滅するだけ。
それも聞いたさ。けどわからないんだ。あんたの説明は抽象的すぎて。あんた、以前のかがりだった時の記憶は持っているのか？
いな。このかがりはこのかがりであり、他のかがりとは異なります。
Interesting. Okay, so is each Kagari different from each other Kagari, or is this a very different situation?
かがりとは 現象のようなものと心得なさい。
以前のカガリが大きな破壊を引き起こしたという記録がある。一つの国が消滅したって。
最新化が起こるにあたり、今の命はその結び目を解かれる。そのようにして命を取り出し、再び活用するためです。
命のリサイクルみたいだな。
What a sickening thought.
なあ、なぜ再進化というのは起きる？
星の記憶は永久に良いものでなければならない。それが叶わぬことが明白な場合、知性はむしろ星を蝕むだけの害毒となる。
So what dictates that the planet's memories must be forever good? Like, that's very difficult to quantify. Like, I can think of what it might be trying to build towards, but it's such a vague concept. I wish I could have it explained a bit better. Just so I know for sure what the writers intend by that phrase. But yeah, as far as the intelligence eats away at the planet, I agree.
害毒だ。
故に、良い記憶の供給が滞った場合、かがりは生まれ、滅びは起こる。生命にやり直しをさせるために。
勝手なもんだな。人間を軽んじすぎてる。命をそんな簡単にすげ替えるなんて。
Well, from the perspective of the planet, that's what we are. We're like, it's funny because it's like it says in the Matrix, humanity is a disease. It's a virus. It really is. We like the way we spread and like the way we kind of absorb the resources around us, or even like a cancer. Like the reason why cancers are so like gross is that the body recognizes cancer as a natural part of itself, but cancer wants to grow and evolve, and it starts absorbing all the nutrients that would normally go to keeping the body functional. So you slowly wither away while your body is feeding into this cancer that's just growing and being useless. I mean, if humanity isn't making whatever good memories it needs to be making, then essentially that's what we are, is we're consuming the resources of the planet and not really producing anything that on the planet scale is good or meaningful. We do things that we like, but that's kind of what cancer does. Cancer will grow teeth and hair and eyes and fingers in places that they're not supposed to be because it just feels like it.
ホモ・サピエンスの一個性不全が自然現象に倫理を問うな。
Oh, yes, ma'am. She snaps at me, much harsher tone than usual.
それは人の間でのみ通用する、脆く儚い理想。人の外に出すものではありません。わきまえよ。
Okay.
だって勝手だろ。一度与えたものを身勝手な理由で奪うなんて。
何一つ理解していない。
なんだと？
どうあろうが、それは起こります。命とは、星を包む不可視の力。生命を育み、保護し、多様性を与える。
What is that? Like, is it just a life force or is that something else?
だが、星や命に判断力などない。愚鈍な巨人に過ぎない。
Okay.
意志なきシステムです。知性は、星でたった一つの種族にしか与えられない。人が脳を持つように、星もまた、知性を宿す生命を育てます。星が持つ命の総量、有限。失われれば、星は冷たい物質だけの世界となりましょう。
Right.
考えるべきは、人の役目、知性の責務を、いつになったら果たしてくれるのですか？
Now that's the call we should all put on banners and remember for ourselves. When will you fulfill your role as intelligent beings? Because frankly, we're not doing a great job. We have like shining moments, but most of the time, it feels like we just are just face in the dirt, obsessed with where our toes are standing.
けど、争いをなくすなんて、人間にはできないぞ。
なら、共に滅びるしかありませんよ。最進化とは、本来、星のすべてを覆うものです。
At that moment, fear envelops me.
滅びを止めるためには、あなたが動くしかないんです。
This is a much, much bigger problem than I imagined. The fate of the entire world is at hand here. And it rests on my two weak shoulders. A little late to be saying this, but I think I'm scared. You should be. I'm scared. Ooh. Alright, we're gonna go a little longer. It happened while I was in a meeting. They needed men to help swap out the damaged lectern at the front and bring in a new one. Several of us helped out, but right afterwards I tripped on a microphone wire and fell, which was when the wristband I always wore on my right wrist slipped, revealing a big, noticeable scar. It's obvious that the cut was from some sort of blade. The deep, vertical scar runs down my wrist. I rushed to cover it with my other hand, but I knew several people saw it. It was an accident, which made it all the more convincing. Oh, okay. Over the course of my attending these meetings as a researcher, I'd made some friends. Both young people my age and older ones who looked out for me. I'm kind of the silent type. There, people made an effort to reach out to those like us so we wouldn't get left out. They wanted to discuss my problems with them. More and more people started coming to me for that, including some people who usually don't talk much. I wasn't very communicative. I kept to myself and didn't try to open up. But little by little, I responded to their coaxing and let more of my complaints slip. Life's too hard. I can't see anything worth living for. I don't care if I never contribute anything to society. I just want to live a quiet life alone. It was easy to keep up the act. I mean, half of it was what I really felt anyway. He's so perfect for this. Seizing his chance, the man leading the meetings, called the professor within the Martel group, confessed his suicide attempt to me. He told me he wasn't sure if he wanted to live and slit his wrists. I'd heard rumors of it before. The professor nodded magnanimously, placing a hand on my shoulder. And now, days later, I've been invited somewhere. There we go. Yep, here we are. Just as I suspected. The Kazamatsuri Cultural Hall. 6,400 square meters of building sitting on top of 9,000 square meter lot. An 8-story tower with 2 levels of basement underneath. The city built it with the goal of promoting culture, but it's actually a huge Gaian base. Within Japan, none of the Gaians have branched off separately. The Martel group is a huge concentration of them. If this were the third world country, there'd be many summoners from minority groups too. Poverty drives the weak and the vulnerable to cults. A small number of these cults unwittingly pass down the act of creating familiars. All the familiars have to do is latch onto the right people and be the real threat. Once created, such familiars easily become objects of awe and worship for those in less educated countries. Meaning it would be all too possible for insurgent groups to wield them. That would never happen in Japan. However, in affluent, materialistic cultures, mentally weak people tend to grow in number, which makes the amount of potential summoners soar. The Martel group recruits people like that. Interesting. That's an interesting concept. I wonder how true that is. There's nothing conspicuous about the building's interior. Because like this idea of like materialistic cultures mentally weak, in affluent materialist cultures, mentally weakened people tend to grow in number. Like I guess because people who don't have to like push to survive might find that they make their own troubles kind of haunt them. I don't know. The architecture is modern with no religious decorations religious decorations are visible. It feels solemn inside. Quite a few people are flitting through, but no one's chatting idly.
まるで神殿だ。
To blend into modern society, the Martel group eradicated its former religious atmosphere. The familiars they used as living idols were consigned to darkness. But they still exist. Undoubtedly, they are hidden deep in the darkness of Martel. In a guest reception room deep in the building, I first undergo something like an interview with an incredibly ordinary man. He starts off with softballing questions like life history, work experience, family makeup, before finally delving into my personality and inner thoughts. I know it's designed to test my aptitude as a summoner. That's why Guardian can't sneak in as spies. Acting won't fool these people. Cheerful people can't keep up depressed act. Only those who felt the pressure of living could have such deep-rooted shadows. Yes, just like me. I passed the first interview. That same day, a man who appeared higher rank showed up. His aura is fierce and horrific. The man who interviewed me could have passed for an ordinary worker if he put on a suit. But not this man. He's the type of person who gets treated like scum by the general populace. He's extremely short with a crooked spine. His face is wrinkly like a frog's, veritably crinkled with melancholy. Wearing what looks like a hospital-issued tunic and pants, his face is downcast as he enters. Behind him trails a woman who seems to be his attendant. He steals a glance at me. Then he mutters to the woman behind him. I catch it, though. This is what he says. He's good, one of us, although he's nothing special. The man leaves, and the woman bows politely before following him. By the time the door shuts, my face is beaded with cold sweat. He sensed my dark side. He classifies people based on something that could never be feigned. Evidently, I passed the second interview. The man from before comes back and takes my hand. He takes my wristband off, stares at my scar, and then breaks into an unsettling smile. Good, that's a relief. Once this guy takes his mask off, he's died in the wool Gaian. Oh, it's so weird. It's so weird that they hunt people who are suicidal, and recruit them. That's so creepy. Like, Gaia had its weirdness before, but knowing that that's a fundamental aspect of their, recruitment process is genuinely kind of terrifying. From there, things move fast. I'm invited to the dark side of the Martel group, the special lectures. The lectures are designed to release us from common sense and science. They criticize the world today for being twisted and segregated. We're told that our pain and suffering is legitimate. The proof is that the power to change the outside world is real. We have hope for our next lives. Reincarnation is real. However, you must purify your fundamental life force in order to become reincarnated into a better life than before. I don't like this. I've seen too much of that in real life. That's scary. Purification will mean you live filled with happiness in your next life. To do so, you must die not through suicide or natural causes, but by pouring your life essence into the earth. Some people are confused by that. The man next to me has risen to his feet. The lecturer doesn't lose his cool in the face of the man's enraged frenzy. Then he shows us proof that this isn't a fairy tale. When a decorative plant leaps from the pot on its own and walks up to the man, the woman bursts into tears. They are tears of joy. Miracles exist, so this means salvation should too. The man who protested falls to his knees, tears streaming down his cheeks.
人間は皆抑圧を受けて生きています。強き者はプレッシャーにも屈しませんが、大半の人間は耐えられない。発散するためにより弱い立場の者を責めることで、その鬱屈は世界の歪みに対する純粋な思いのはず。見なさい、この魔物を。自然物でありながら人の心を注いだだけで、このような邪悪な形になり果てます。心が病んでいる証です。ですが魔物は苦しみに満ちた世界を改革したいと願う。私たちの働きによって少しでも現世が改善され、かつ命をも純化することが叶うのなら、それは芳醇な救いであると言えます。
So I guess one of the other questions is the system that has been set up, the life essence that made the planet. It allows for this and superhumans to exist. It's fundamentally part of the system. But it also feels like it kind of preys on the worst aspects of humanity and then kind of encourages those. So why? Why does that even work out? Why can't we live in a world that doesn't manifest powers? Feels like that would be a great way to help reduce the amount of conflict in the world. One attendee falls to the lecturer's feet, clinging to him. Then another does, and another. I join in as well, pretending to cry.
同志の皆さん、共に救済への道を歩んでいきましょう。夢でもおとぎ話でもない。これら魔物たちを従えて。
Oh, that's creepy. That's creepy. Alright, we're gonna be training to become summoners next time. Yeah, so whoever wrote the story, either had personal experience with or has done a good amount of research into, cults, and not just cults, though, I'd say even just general religiosism. Or I unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot in the politics side of things now, too. the idea of like isolating people, feeling like the rest of the world has gone mad, that there's that this is the only way to find truth and happiness, and like it makes us like sets up these tribalisms, these echo chambers, and like you see it and it's kind of scary because like we should be able to have conversations with each other. Part of the way that we open our minds is communicate and talk to people who have different viewpoints, and we actually have a conversation. That's how we could expand and grow and like become a more moderate, like beneficial, like forward facing society. And yet we seem determined to set up these camps, and the camp is 100% right, and anything that's not in this camp is 100% wrong, and you'll fight to the death because you believe in that. And that's such a dangerous point of view. That's what leads to some of the worst conflicts in history. And it's scary because I see it so much. And I think it's always been like that. I don't think it's like, oh, things are so much worse now than they used to be. It's like, no, in a lot of ways they're better, and in a lot of ways they're worse. It's like it's an ongoing evolving process, but it's so scary to see that, especially because a lot of times the more extreme sides get in the news, and that's why everyone starts to believe, and it becomes a self-fulfilling, kind of self-feeding prophecy where it's like it just rolls over and over and over again. And like you watch the news, it feels like the world's full of crazy people who aren't worth listening to, and they affiliate with these groups. So you should just distance yourself from those groups. So you go to the group that you like, and they tell you that, oh yeah, they're crazy, stay away from them, and it just kind of rips further and further and further. Not so much saying like, oh, you can't agree with them because that's wrong, but more of a sense like you can't even talk to them or even hear their ideas and, you know, try and find a common ground. Instead, it becomes this platforming of like, I will burn the world to the ground in order to make, if it means I don't get what I think is right. And that's so stupid. And yet it's like what so many people feel like. It feels like that's what people are being pushed more and more toward. Like it's inevitable. And that's terrifying. I wish people could understand that there is such a thing as compromise and, you know, working together and finding cohesive solutions. And like understanding that sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit in order to gain what's more important. But it feels like that attitude is being looked on like it's just dumb or like a pipe dream, when it's not. It really isn't. Compromise is integral to being a human being. So to suddenly decide that it has no space in religion or politics is just silly. Anyway. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's definitely interesting. The whole interaction with Kagari was bizarre, but in a fun way. This whole thing about joining up with Gaia officially is really intense and crazy, and it makes me wonder, is Guardian somehow not going to notice that he's joined Gaia? Like, is he going to be able to keep that a secret or what? I don't know. But anyway, it'll all work out, hopefully. We're moving forward with like we think will lead us to salvation, true salvation, which is the world not being re-evolutionized, but instead proceeding forth into a bright new bold future that extends beyond the stars. And hopefully we can actually achieve that in real life too. So yeah, it's worth talking about. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to the patrons and members who support me directly. I do everything I can to be worthy of that support. I'm going to try and make the content on here even better than it ever has been before, but you know, a big part of that is because you're supporting me and because you talk to me and tell me what you think, so thank you for that. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I look forward to reading your comments on this one, especially with the question I asked. And until next video watching me up, see me next. I'll see you there.